Welcome to the Own Your Best Life podcast. I'm May Empson, your host, leadership and mindset coach. Here, we talk all things spiritual, mindset, business, leadership, and wellness for the modern seeker who wants to align their life with purpose and inspiration. We'll cover career changes, stress management, meditation, energy, intuition, and more. Each episode holds spiritual and practical tools to help you live a life of your wildest dreams without getting burnt out along the way. Ready to live a life on your own terms? This is the Own Your Best Life podcast. Welcome, friends, to episode number 78 of the Own Your Best Life podcast. So one of the ways that we stop ourselves from truly achieving our goals or moving forward in our lives is through fear. We fear that we are going to fail. We fear that we will lose something like money or status or time in the process. And as much as we fear that life is never going to go our way, we also fear that it will go our way. What happens, though, if we live our lives in fear? Well, we stay where we are. And so much of what's going to be good for us in terms of growth comes at the expense of fear. So today we will talk about cleaning up fears. And how is that related to living more purposefully? So when you want to live a life filled with purpose, it means that you're no longer willing to accept old fears. So purpose is this driving force behind why you're doing something, and it is the intention of the season of your life, or even sometimes the whole of your life. And so many of us reach a sense of success or a sense of fulfillment with our career in order to prove something to ourselves or to others. We want to prove that we can make it in a world dominated by people who don't look like us or come from our background. And we want to prove that we can do something when we put our minds to it. We want to prove that we are good enough. And isn't it interesting, though, that no matter what you've achieved, the next thing you know, you feel like you're back to square one. You've got a new goal. You have to make new decisions. You're up against the same questions of worth or uncertainty. And your results are now the next set of circumstances. So the thing that was the last thing, right, your results, now become your starting line, your circumstances. This is now what is normal for me. And these kind of circumstances will either help you or hurt your chances of success. Yet if we can see that we get to choose what we think about our past results, about what our lives are like currently now, we can get to creating a new future. But what happens, though, when you have a hard time thinking new or different thoughts? What if you have a hard time choosing what you think about the past? And how come some people just seem to make progress so effortlessly while others keep circling the same questions again and again and again without making a decision? Well, it's in the way that we approach fear. I teach my clients to make goals and decisions based on their values, and their values don't come from fear. Values are the ways that you want to live your life even when there is fear. Your purpose and your values are that guiding North Star. It's who you are when no one's watching you and you have nothing to prove. And when you focus on your purpose and your values, you stop focusing on fear because your fear is smaller than your purpose and your values. Your purpose and your values are bigger than your fear. And these purpose and these values will create way more expansive lives than fear ever would. If we decided to live our lives based on fear, we would stay as small as possible for as long as possible. Fear will reduce us while purpose expands us. And I'll give you an example. I remember being in my first consulting project, and it was a really difficult and challenging project. All the people on the team were telling me it was the worst project they've ever done. And not because of the results we were achieving, but because of the climate, the constant changes, the reprioritization that was occurring. Yet, since it was my first project, I didn't know what was next and how much better it could be because I never experienced other projects for myself at that point, aside from maybe one of the summer projects I had. And so when they asked me if I would stay on, that project for all the reasons that felt good to my ego. Oh, they need me. I would be, valued in this role. I said yes. And at the time, I was constantly getting sick. And so were people on my team. And it was a sign that something wasn't right, yet I stayed. Why? Because of this fear of the unknown. I stayed for 7 months when the normal length of engagements were 2 to 3 months. And this actually came at a cost to my career in the long term, because I could have experienced something completely new and different, been exposed to different teams, leadership, and growth of new projects, and I would have grown myself in the process. I actually ended up receiving a less than stellar rating based on that one project, and of course that was not my ideal situation. But as soon as I left, the next 2 projects were completely different. My performance measurably improved. I developed new relationships. I met new people, and I learned entirely new things about myself and the other projects and industries that I worked in. And it makes no sense in hindsight why we stay where we are, because of the fears we have of not knowing if the next thing is going to work out. But one of the best ways to overcome that is to realize this next thing, which is that your worst case scenario is the one you're in right now. We often think that the worst case is something even worse or less, but that's because our brain will optimize and focus on fear. And that's what our brain does to protect us. So we can say to ourselves every time we experience fear, thank you, brain, for that fear, but I'm going to use my other part of my brain, the prefrontal cortex, and that one is more strategic. And I'm going to realize that what's keeping me safe may not be good for me or even necessary. And I always remember this story of when I stayed too long in that one project, because so many people ask me about fear of moving on to the next thing, or fear of cutting off a path by making a decision. Yeah, this is what we're here for, is to evolve. So if you don't have that purpose in mind, to really let go, to evolve, to grow, to love, whatever that purpose is for you, and you can borrow any of these if that works for you, then you are not going to choose the next thing. You're not going to evolve, because you don't evolve when you don't make any new decisions. You evolve by making a decision and learning from it. I don't think of my decisions anymore as right or wrong, and I encourage all my clients to do the same. And I ask myself this: what do I want to learn through this decision? When we think of decisions, so many of you might have decisions about your career. Should I do this new thing, or should I do the other new thing? You might have decisions to make about, how do I want to change my relationship with my kids, or to have better days, or not be so mad, or not to be so sad, or to not be so worried in these situations. These are all decisions as well. And so when you start to think about your life is the sum of all of the decisions that you are making on a daily basis. And so knowing how to make better, faster decisions is what is so important for your growth. And this is something that I work with clients on, because coaches help people make decisions. They help you clarify decisions. They help you understand what are the driving factors for decisions. They help you think through the decisions in a way that is more holistic. And so learning through decision making is a huge part of this process. And when you can ask yourself, what am I going to learn through this decision? What do I want to learn through this process? Then you can realize that it's not about a right or wrong anymore, right? It's about that greater purpose of what is guiding me here. And so when you do that, you stop letting fear be the driving force of your decisions. If you fear that you don't have enough money and that it's not enough, you will stay in one place doing the same thing forever. Because the thought that you have in your head is that I have to stay, because what if it doesn't work out, this whole next thing? What if the finances change? We forget about other things that might help our growth. What if you wanted to learn about a new industry or a role or develop new relationships, I'd argue that you could still benefit from those and make money in the long term. And you'd actually be adding more value to yourself and what you can do, which could make you wealthier. So that's just an example, right, of this one line of thinking. And there's so many more ways of thinking about things that keep us in this same place. And sometimes keeping in the same place isn't really about the change in a physical place or an external place. It's even in the places that we stay in our minds, the places where we think, oh, this is the thing I have to do because it's going to give me a certain kind of pride or status. And I've always sought validation in these ways. So therefore, I'm going to stay here thinking this thing. So staying here can be a very internal space that we create our external from. But I'm telling you, it is all still about you deciding whether this is going to be enough. And we can think about things in the short term versus the long term, right? In the example with the money thing, maybe in the short term, you'll take a financial hit. And I know I have taken hits many times financially when I invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into education, into coaching, into experiences. Yet my life was much more full and rich in the process. I also ended up making more money and being a lot more fulfilled in the long run. And I really like the person I became and the person I'm becoming. That is worth so much more money than an extra paycheck or two, right? If you could actually decide how much money you would pay to love the person that you are, to enjoy all of life's experiences, that is a lot. And so then we say, oh, this is too much. I'm going to take a financial hit to learn how to really love my whole entire life even more, to really squeeze all the joy out of this thing because I'm worried about like a small financial hit. That is very short-term thinking. Fear, however, is based so much more on short-term thinking. Short-term thinking is about survival, right? And unless you are literally asking a life or death question, we don't need to use fear to make our decisions. Most of your decisions are not life or death decisions. And we are thinking about higher quality problems. When we actually put things in perspective, we have this opportunity to make these choices in our life. We are thinking about what is better than what I have now. And all the fears that you have about failing, of not being able to show the world that you're perfect, are not useful in this arena. And I mean, literally, they are not useful. No one is ever asking you to show up without fear. No one expects you to be superhuman, except for you. And often, people are so focused on living their own lives that they don't actually care that much about you and what you're doing unless it affects them. So you might as well go and do what you want to do, to grow, to have fun, to enjoy this gift of life and the people and opportunities that are all around you. And I want to leave you with this story, which is this. For a while, it sounds crazy now that I think about it, I was in fear that someone would find out how capable I was, and they would ask me to do something that utilized my full potential. And the reason I was scared of this was because I was worried that I would burn out. And when I was in that fear, I was losing my power to decide. And once I realized that it would never be about the environment, but it would always be about me and my own decisions, I knew that no amount of external change was going to make all of this fear go away. I could change jobs, I could change relationships, I could have tons of money. But if I was going to burn myself out and not enjoy life, that was still on me, not someone else. And my fears of not being enough, so I have to say yes to requests. My fears of not being good enough, so I had to overwork to prove it. That was all on me. And it is so freeing to realize that your fears are your own. If you are the problem, then you are the solution. This is the work. Constantly creating new thoughts based on the way you want to show up in the world, and being aware of when your thoughts are based on fear so that you can notice what happens in your life when you act based on fears versus act based on freedom, based on love, based on the results that you do want to create. I had to change my thoughts to I'm okay with the discomfort of not working more than I planned. I'm okay with the discomfort of not pleasing everyone. I'm okay with the discomfort of having space and time and energy in my life to not think about work or the next push or the next to do. I'm okay with the discomfort of not having to prove my worth. We don't just arrive without all these fears, although it would be lovely. We have to prove to ourselves that we can hold them. We can accept them and be willing to choose another belief or thought that we want to get behind. The belief of pleasing people doesn't support growth, my friends. It supports resentment. And we have to fully own our part in that picture. And as much as we just want to wish all of our fears away, the best way of managing them is to notice them when they appear. Accept them as they are. Thank them for their service. Look into the things if they need to be looked into. And realize that these are human instincts, that they are for your survival, so they are natural and ordinary. Maybe they are not needed here. That's a different story. But nothing has gone wrong here. Nothing's wrong with you if you have fears. Once we accept them, we actually don't give them as much attention because we don't expend energy hating them. Instead, we look at what we want. We focus on what we desire. We focus on the energy of the freedom or love we want to have in our lives. And we use that focus to crowd fear out so it's not the only thing running through our minds. And this is what we work on in coaching, in identifying what we truly desire, what truly feels like freedom, so that we naturally evolve through focusing our energy, our time, our efforts on seeing the world differently, as more full of possibilities, as more full of opportunities. And all we have to do is accept that the world of possibilities is more real than a world of fears. So if this topic resonates with you, and you want to see transformational results in your life, you'll love coaching. So getting coached consistently is a spark that will light that fire of inspiration to make the change you're looking to make. And it is that first step in creating clarity, making a massive shift, and moving obstacles out of your way so that you can move forward. So feel free to go to www.mayemson.com/contact to learn more. I love you, my friends. I hope you have an amazing week, and I will talk to you next time. Thanks so much for joining us this week on Own Your Best Life. Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts so that you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, can you please rate and review on iTunes? I would so appreciate it. Share it with a friend, take a screenshot of it, and tag @MayEmson. This helps continue to get the word out. For more show notes and resources, check out www.mayemson.com. You'll have all the links to everything you heard here today. Thanks so much for listening. It's time to own your best life.